Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and I'm back with the peace in my ear. Do we still have the caller waiting? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear caller.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is all his fault. It's not the cable, it's your ears, dude.
It's my ears.
Yes. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Jazakumullah khairan. How are you? You missed it yesterday because there was a wasp in here. And I wasn't sure whether the sound that I was hearing in my ear was because there was a wasp in it or whether there was some funny cable being messed around in the background. It's been a while, my brother. Where have you been?
Yeah, inshallah, the sound team will. Yeah, it is all his fault, isn't it? He keeps messing about with it in that room, doesn't he? He keeps pressing that button.
You're on the right side. You're on the right side.
Well, I'll always be on your side, Mufti side.
So where have you been for the last few days?
Well, while you were on your break, I was adhering to every word you were saying.
Oh, mashallah. Very good.
So that's how I know you. Anyway, a little bit. And then Masroof. So I thought I'd ring you in a gup shop.
Oh, fantastic. We missed a bit of gup shop. Go on, fire away.
Yeah, right. What was I going to say? You're talking about politicians and all this, about the Yorkshire Cricket Club and all this. It wasn't a storm in a teacup. It took 2 or 3 years for that young cricketer and all his, his buddies were calling him the P word and all this and that.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is don't always believe politicians. They say one thing for public and one thing in private. Like you said, pile them high.
Yep, absolutely.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah. I get it.
And all this. So you got to be, what I was going to say is, we've done introvert and extrovert, so optimistic or pessimistic.
Optimistic and pessimistic. I like it.
So most of us, like you're saying, like you said, I'm going Jannah. The one who thinks he's going to go to Jannah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it's down to me. You don't think that whatever you might be the pious of all 5 times, you might do one deed wrong. Because you think that you will go to, who are you to judge Allah?
Meshach.
Exactly right. So don't think that I'm doing everything right and I am guaranteed Jannah. It's no chance. It's like, let me just, one Maulana in a Brantford channel a few months ago said, a gangster, they took him to, Dawat Islami Kafala, where they go 3-4 days in a mosque and, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yep.
And that gangster, the first night he went in there, obviously everybody brings their 20, 30 people, bring their own roti shoti. He said, I'm having this roti, I'm going to order a takeaway. So they said, all right, you order your takeaway.
Yeah.
Okay, they said, okay, you order your takeaway tonight, but there's no more telephone calls. Anyway, cut a long story short, after he's been in there 3-4 days, like you were saying last week, when they were about to leave, the guy started crying. He said, this is the first 3-4 days I've had so much peace of mind. I don't want to go. Please stay here. Let's not go back into the dunya.
That's right.
So, anyway,
so I'll touch on the optimistic, pessimistic then, yeah?
Okay. Both Mirbani.
Jazakallah khair, my brother. Okay, assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, we have another caller waiting. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear caller. Are they? That's a coincidence. Is that on the call?
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brother. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, brother. Thank you very much for taking my call. I just wanted to ask one very simple question.
Sure.
Whether a male Muslim is permissible to wear platinum ring as a wedding ring.
Okay, mashallah. I'm laughing because my wife texted me that question literally whilst I was in the break, minutes ago. So I just thought this was a setup. But when I heard your voice, I don't recognize you, so it's not a setup. This is not a setup, is it?
It's not. Actually, before I called you, I sent a message through your website.
Okay.
It was the same question.
Okay,
I'm
mashallah.
calling from Coventry.
No problem, my dear brother. So that's fine. I believe you. So this is not a setup. I'm not going to go back to my wife and say, what have you, what's going on? You're trying to set me up here. Jazakallah khair, my brother. Jazakallah khair. Barakallah fi. Assalamu rahmatullah. Okay, so I think that's the question. So the reason why I say that is because my wife was texting me those very same questions earlier about rings and men wearing rings, and it was for a wedding ring. The first question she put is, are platinum rings permissible for men? And as soon as our brother said that, I thought, hey, what's going on here? Now, that's a massive coincidence. Just shows, doesn't it? So let's speak about rings in general. Okay, ring is a form of jewelry. That's a simple fact. What do we mean by jewelry? Jewelry like earrings, rings, and then we can go further like ankle bracelets and even nose piercings and nose studs. And we can go further, necklaces. These are all forms of jewelry. What is jewelry? Jewelry is to beautify a person, to make a person look better than they already look. What is usually used for jewelry? Usually what we use for jewelry are attractive, bright, shiny type of material. So you tend to find metals are used predominantly for jewelry. Also, we find that in some cases now with a kind of more modern-y sort of thing, you can use kind of plastics and even wood type of jewelry as well. So that kind of exists. But, traditionally, it's always been metals. So men, if you look within the Sunnah and tradition, did not wear jewelry. Okay, men weren't permitted to wear necklaces, men weren't permitted to wear earrings, men weren't permitted to wear nose rings, men weren't permitted to put ankle bracelets or rings of anything whatsoever. We find, for example, a tradition in which the Prophet ﷺ takes a gold ring and wears a gold ring, but then revelation comes and he discards it and the companions discard it as well. And he mentions in other hadiths that gold is haram upon the male, but permissible for the female because it's a decorative item. And anything which is decorative is impermissible on a male. For instance, a male won't put makeup on. So he won't put, like women's makeup in days gone by. It literally used to be sort of like a kind of like a dye, basically. And they would just rub it on their arms and rub it on their cheeks. It'd be kind of like a reddish color. And all it would do is it would give a little bit color to the face. Men wouldn't put that on. So that's one narration we have. Then we have a time in which the Prophet ﷺ, Islam had now reached Medina, and the Prophet ﷺ was now doing the tabligh, the da'wah. So he had written to Arab tribes, and when he wrote to Arab tribes, he would write the letters, seal it up with wax from a candle and send it off. But he also then was going beyond the boundaries of the Arabian Peninsula. So because he was going beyond the boundaries of the Arabian Peninsula, he was now sending letters to the Persian warlords in the Persian Empire. He was sending letters now to the Eastern Roman Empire. So when he was doing that, he was informed by his companions that they don't open letters unless there is a seal on it, because they feel that they only open letters of people of their ranking, of their status. And they didn't just open anybody's letter. And the way they measured the ranking of a person or the status of a person is that they had a seal. What we mean by a seal is what they would do is they would wind or roll the letter up, pour wax over it, and then take a seal and seal it. And this seal would be like kings had this seal. We see within Europe, kings had this seal. Not the same one, obviously. They had their own seals. And it was difficult to forge. Now, I know now in the modern world, forging a seal is easy. Anybody can forge a seal. But in those days, forging a seal was difficult, which meant it was like a signature. So like, for example, when we get a letter from our boss or a memo, we look at the bottom to see the signature. And when we see the signature and the name, we know that this is from our boss. But if we don't see the signature, we think, maybe just the admin office of the boss has sent this letter. And it's not come from the boss. So the Prophet ﷺ was encouraged that he should make a seal that he would send. Now, when you make a seal, now obviously the Prophet ﷺ did not have sort of, in most of his clothing, pockets and things like that accessible. So he took a ring. Now, the ring was a silver ring of a certain weight, and it had a black Ethiopian stone in it. This black Ethiopian stone then had engraved within it Muhammad Rasulullah. Now there's ikhtilaf amongst the muhaddithun that did they say Muhammad Rasulullah from bottom up, as in the last line was Muhammad, the middle line was Rasul, and the top line was Allah, out of adab, etiquettes, that Allah's name would be above Muhammad's. But we have, for example, Ibn Hajar Asqalani rahimahullah ta'ala, who says, no, it was written Muhammad Rasul Allah. Okay, that's how it was written. Now, the Prophet ﷺ kept this on his hand. There's difference of opinion whether he kept it on his right hand, on his small finger, or on his left hand, because we see, for example, mainly the narrations speak of his right hand, but there is some that also refer to the left hand. He would keep the stone facing towards his palm, and he would have the ring part, okay, facing out. So that shows that he wasn't wearing it for show, because when you wear something for show, then obviously you have the stone facing out. What he would do then is that he would write the letter, and then he would pour the wax, he would take his ring off, and he would stamp on it and send it off. Now we know from narration, there is an absence of evidence that at that time other companions took a ring. There's only that narration which mentions the gold, but there's no narration that I can recall that other companions also took a silver ring. In fact, and including the likes of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidina Uthman, any of these companions. Because what happened was when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, the ring was then handed to Sayyidina Abu Bakr radhiyallahu. That shows that it wasn't a ring with the intention of jewelry, but it was a ring which had a position of power because it was used as a seal. Had it been jewelry, then his family would have taken it because it would have been in their possession, like the family kept hold of his clothes, his lower garment and his upper garment, his shield and all the rest of it. That stayed with his family. But the ring was passed on to Sayyidina Abu Bakr. So Sayyidina Abu Bakr had this ring for the number of years that he was the Khalif. So it became linked with the Khilafah. So it was a ring of office, meaning when you had the office of being the Amirul Mu'mineen, when you had the office of being the leader of the believers, then you had this ring. Then when Sayyidina Abu Bakr passed away, he handed the ring to Sayyidina Umar radhiyallahu. Then Sayyidina Umar radhiyallahu had this ring. And then when Sayyidina Umar passed away, he passed this ring to Sayyidina Uthman radhiyallahu. And after a few years, I can't remember the exact number of years, it fell into the well of Aris. Sayyidina Uthman then had the well emptied and dug up, but they never found the ring. They didn't find the ring after that. And I always say that that ring, in a way, was when the Islamic empire was won. The fitna sort of started. The fitna started arguably after Sayyidina Umar passed away, but it came pretty rife in the back end of Sayyidina Uthman radhiyallahu Khilafah. And then unfortunately we saw what happened in the time of Sayyidina Ali radhiyallahu, and we definitely know what happened in the time of Sayyidina Hassan and Hussein radhiyallahu. So that there's only a record of being made of silver. There's no record of any other metal. Now, when men wear a ring now, they wear it to signify that they are married. There is nothing within the tradition, within the Sunnah, that men wore rings when they got married. Okay, for example, men used to get married 4 times. So what would they have, four rings on? Because the ring signifies some kind of level of commitment. That it's a commitment of sorts, and it shows that you're married, and it means that, I don't know, I guess it means that women don't come up to you to say that, are you free and single? I don't know. I don't know what else it could signify. In the Sharia, it's you don't need something on your hand to signify that you are associated with a chap, with a chapess or a chap. Now, a girl wearing it, a girl is allowed to wear jewelry anyway. A woman is permitted to wear jewelry. She is allowed to make, obviously when she goes out, she should conceal her hands or remove her jewelry, because obviously it's going to be attractive, especially if they're pretty rings, and she has, has them on her fingers. Then, that's going to be a problematic. But if she wears it in the house and ladies come and they see that she has a ring on her finger, then the ladies won't ask that, by the way, sister, is your daughter married? Because they can see from their own eyes that she's married. Or she's not married, rather, but she's, her nikah is in the process. For now, there's an engagement of sorts, or there's been an agreement between the two families and things of that nature. So there's some benefit in that. But for a man wearing it, there's no benefit in it whatsoever. So not only is it that the metal that's used by the Prophet ﷺ was silver, secondly, as I said, he had the stone in that ring. Thirdly, its purpose is very different. The purpose why the Prophet ﷺ did that was as a sign of office. So if you are, for example, a mufti or a qazi. So for example, in my position now, if I wanted to sign a fatwa and I wanted people to know that this has come from Mufti Amjad, and I had a ring which had some nice pretty engraving in it, or it had the engraving of our Dar al-Ifta, which is called Markazul Ifta wal Qada, and I used that on my fatwa. I dipped it in ink and used it on my fatwa, so when the fatwa arrives, then people can say, this is definitely from Mufti Amjad because there's his seal, his ring. But we don't live in that kind of world, do we? We don't send things by letters. We don't receive things by letters anymore. Everything is electronic. Okay, so now we have signatures, electronic signatures, and even that's gone. Now, for instance, when you're applying for something, like say energy, like we have a madrasa, for example, and when we're getting a quote for our electricity or getting a quote for our gas or something, it mentions it in the email that by you replying to this email, but in this way, then that is an agreement of contract. Okay, so signature is no longer required anymore. Just that replying back to that email is an agreement of contract. So if you don't read the small print and you just respond to it without realizing it, then you've agreed the contract. So you see now the society is moving so quickly that there's too much delay to send a letter to you, for you to receive the letter, for you to sign the letter, for you to then post it back. They're not bothered with that anymore. A simple signature, a simple message from your email, like references. If you get a reference from somebody and there is clearly says their signature, but you just type your name in, on the keyboard. There's no signature there, and you send it. But because it's come from your email, then your email acts as what they call an email signature. So that's changed. So nowadays, the whole purpose in Dar al-Iftars, they have the old kind of stamp, where you dip it in ink and you press it down, and it makes a stamp on your paper. They used to have that in Dar al-Iftars back in the day. Even now in the Indian subcontinent, they still have them. But even those are now somewhat outdated because all fatwa now are electronic. People I don't receive fatwa by mail anymore. There's the odd one or two that comes in, but really, very rarely do I receive anything by physical post. And then I have to, write to an address and email and post it out. It just doesn't happen. Most that I'm getting, is, electronically through the platforms that I have, like the brother from Coventry said, that, I emailed you, so, that email has come through, and obviously I don't need to answer it now. So, it's through email. We move quickly. Now, if the Dar al-Iftars stayed as they were, that no, we're only going to take letters in, and we're only going to reply back to letters, then it would really slow the process down, and people don't have the time to wait 5 days, 6 days. We live in a different society now. They want immediate answers. And if you don't get an immediate answer, then they start searching the internet. And it's the usual thing, in it. Like something happens to you, you see some blood in your urine, or you see some redness in your eye, and you Google it, or any other search engine, doesn't have to be Google. You Bing it or Google it or whatever else is out there, and it comes back that you could have bowel cancer or something, and you start freaking out. Oh my God, I've got bowel cancer, or whatever. But what you fail to realize is that there's so many other reasons why there could be urine in your blood, not urine in your blood in your urine rather. So in that way, similarly, I was fasting and I ate something, or I drank this. Is my fast valid? According to one scholar, this fast is valid. Oh, that's all right then. It says according to a scholar. But you don't know what website you've gone on. You don't even know who that is. Who is that guy who just said to you, didn't hear that, say again? That's right. Now with I don't know why when I said that's right, but nowadays there's a lot of fake news or fake info. So when you go onto websites and you're finding something out, if you don't know, now, normally we go to nhs.co.uk, that is the National Health Service. Okay, so pretty well that is the government's National Health Service, and that's a pretty safe place to go when you're looking at anything to do with health, I think, right? But you can't go to these other websites which are also health oriented, but you're not sure what it is, and you don't know how truthful it is, how truthful it isn't. And also you find, right at the top usually is, Wikipedia. And Wikipedia is a fantastic source for information. Absolutely it is. But it is information, it's just data. It takes an expert to value that data, to understand that data, that, hold on, is that relevant, is that not relevant? It's similarly, scholars have hundreds and thousands of books behind them. Obviously I don't. But they have them in their libraries, hundreds and thousands of books. But if they don't know how to look for an answer, those books are useless. It's like Wikipedia, you know, what use are those books if I don't know where to go for an answer? Whereas if you know exactly where to go for an answer and I can judge whether the answer is valid or not valid, and that's what their training comes in, then it's right. The other question that we had, or the other request that we had, was to discuss about optimism and pessimism, or being optimistic or being pessimistic. But the question of the ring was really interesting because obviously twice within the space of half an hour was so coincidental, and I felt, you know, a lengthy explanation was required about that so that people can understand the full concept of rings in Islam with regards to men. So I hope that has been clear. You know, I don't wear a ring, it's, you know, on my hand. And yeah, like I said, you know, as a mufti, I can easily take a ring to use as a stand, you know, a stamp that can show authority, that this person is in religious authority. He has the power to give fatwa. He has the power to basically determine what is halal and haram in essence. But you know, we don't wear it because we don't. That purpose, it doesn't serve anymore. There's so many other things now that serve that purpose, and as I've just gone through lengthily with, you know, signatures and whatever. So, my dear brother from Peterborough, I will remember the optimistic and pessimistic, but inshallah, it's most likely going to be next week. However, next week I may not be here for a couple of days because make dua, my daughter marries. Next week, Wednesday is her nikah, and Thursday is her walima. So I think I have to be there, it has been rumored. So inshallah, I will be there, make dua for her, make dua for our new son-in-law, and make dua for happiness between the two families. Ameen. So it will be possibly back end of next week that I see you next. So take care, speak soon, make plenty of dua. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.